Warning, this podcast has stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
132 in Bush, I've got him at gunpoint. Check the left phone for going to full evacuation at this time.
They're pulling them out.
911. Advise ready for camp.
God!
To another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
And I'm Chuck.
And I am back. You handled it solo for 2 episodes. I was on vacation, and then I had some other stuff going on, and it's just been tough coordinating our schedules, but I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah, it was great. We actually have to talk offline about Sean. We had him on, and he came back for a part 2, and there will be a part 3 eventually. But we got some really cool shit to talk about, but we haven't had a chance to sit down. I mean, your personal life, my personal life, kind of.
We can talk about it on Locker Room because that's what Locker Room is for.
Yeah.
But here we have a guest this week because that's what these episodes, the War Stories episodes, are for. And Chuck,
a good one too.
I came in. You started a little bit before I got here, just briefing the guest, and he's in the green room. But I got to hear a little bit of it, and at one point I was like, okay, stop asking questions because now I'm starting I was like, no, wait, because now I want to know. And we were like, oh, we got to save it for the show because we'll get all that. It's going to be fun. So who is with us?
Dylan found a really good one. He was a sergeant first class in a Ranger regiment, and then a major in Special Forces. Now, for those who know about military rank structure and how it goes, it's not back in the old school days where you go from enlisted all the way through officers. You got to do something in between, and you got to go to school, and you got to go to OCS and do all this stuff. So that's a really big deal, at least in my eyes. And I have a lot of respect for those guys who go from enlisted into officer ranks. It's freaking amazing. And then his specialties include U.S. counterterrorism policy, foreign security, special operations training programs, red team exercise program management, petroleum production site security assessment. I mean, I could go on and on. U.S. Army force protection, unit advisor level 2, hostage survival, advanced marksmanship training, pistol and rifle. I mean, this guest has got a lot. He's already written 2 books. He's got a 3rd one on the way. I mean, we could go all day about his accolades. I mean, it's pretty intense.
Yeah. So let's just bring in military veteran and author Chris Brewer. Welcome, Chris. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me.
We're happy to. And I honestly, these are some of my. I mean, we've had tons of different guests, and I'm always fascinated by some of these kinds of stories because I don't know, especially for the law enforcement people that are listening. A lot of law enforcement have military backgrounds, but a lot also don't. And you can get hired as a rank and file officer and make it up to chief of police. You just climb the ranks. But in the military, to go from enlisted to officer is a lot less common. And you did that, but you also did it serving in some very interesting and cool places. So we like to do this with all our guests. And so I thought we would start with just a little quick blurb on how you ended up getting into the service in the first place. What brought you to a career of service?
Well, basically, I was born in the Army. My dad was an Army officer, grew up all through his career, moving around base to base. It seemed natural. I was going to North Georgia at that time called Military College, and we were right down the road from the Mountain Ranger Camp. And then they reactivated the 1st Ranger Battalion in 1974, and I was working nights and weekends trying to pay my tuition, keep up with everything, getting tired of studying, and then saw all the flags and banners and advertisements for the regiment. I said, hey, I want to do that. So I enlisted, went down there as a PFC in the newly reactivated Ranger Battalion that was led by all of the survivors from the long-range reconnaissance patrols, special studies and observation group, Project Phoenix, all the really hardcore guys that survived out of Vietnam. Those were the officers and NCOs. So I had a rude awakening and a great initial education for that first 3 years. and went up, made E7, wound up down at the Ranger Department as an instructor. You got to do instructor time as an NCO. Pinned on E7 there. But then the sergeant major told me when I signed in, buy a house, boy. You'll be here for the rest of your career. I made 7 pretty quick. I got picked up at 8 years and I pinned on at 9 years. And there was no way that I was going to stay at Fort Benning for 11 years. But as he explained it, drill sergeant was critically short at that time. And, things go through cycles. Everybody's talking about morale is down and things are not as hard as they used to be. At that time, we had the Carter administration, and it was today's Army wants to join you was the motto. And the drill sergeants had
What?
trainees had stress cards. If they were feeling too stressed, they'd hold up their stress card.
Wow.
Was this the
And-
beginning of that?
Yeah, that was happening back then.
Oh,
And
no,
if they held
it
up-
went through phases, Tom. So
No, I know, but this was,
phased
I was
out
wondering
and
if
they
this
brought
was
it
the
back.
beginning of it, right? Like, was this the first
yeah.
time they had ever, because I can't remember earlier references. This is probably the earliest reference I've ever heard to those stress card. Is that,
I get
is
where
this
you're
the
going with
first time you think?
First time that ever came up, and you had to give
Okay.
the trainee a timeout. You couldn't yell at him. So he would become mentally stressed and possibly permanently damaged. We had co-ed. That's when co-ed basic training started. And they made,
Okay.
nobody wanted to be a drill sergeant. So they made it a 5-year locked in tour, and you did not volunteer. You were assigned and selected. And since I was at Fort Benning, I was going to get selected, and there was no way to get out of it other than OCS was the only thing that took priority. And the rate I was going, and I was going to make first sergeant, probably sergeant major, but you get farther and farther away from soldiers and field, and that wasn't what I wanted.
Mhm.
OCS, I got to basically start over. I had my lobotomy that turned me into a second lieutenant and sent me up to the 82nd Airborne and gave me a platoon.
It's funny, that joke never gets old,
man.
because I used to ask our like, for us, you'd say, oh, you're promoting to lieutenant. When do they schedule the lobotomy? Oh, you're promoting to captain. When do they schedule the removal of your spine? Right? Like, it would just, the higher the rank goes, the more body parts you had removed. So
But
funny
there
that joke still is there.
is something to that, though, because when I got to the 82nd, I went down to clothing sales. I got the red beret, because in those days we wore black berets. And wasn't thinking. I got a unit crest and I pinned it on the beret, started to walk out, and realized I'm an officer now. I can't do that. I have to wear that little butter bar on it.
Right.
So
right.
I was doing fine up until that point. I went back inside. I put a butter bar on the beret, put it on my head, walked out. Somebody saluted me. I returned the salute and stuck my thumb right in my own eye. First time I'd ever done that in my entire career.
Were you nervous? Were you like, oh shit?
Lobotomy, man.
A dumb mistake. Like, I've done, tripped
That's
on my own
hilarious.
feet. So,
But I can only imagine, because I know from when I was in the Marine Corps, when we would get someone who was a Mustang, as opposed to someone who's fresh out of college, and the only thing they know about the military is what they've seen on the History Channel, as opposed to the Mustang, he cut his teeth on the and on the enlisted side. Those guys got so much respect, and they came in, they hit the ground running. And you'd have the other ones who came in, and you could tell, and they would come in and they would be demanding respect and demanding all this shit. And then the gunny would grab them, and the gunny would be like, come here, let me teach you something. And you'd take them around our vehicles, and then the next thing you know, they come back completely different. So I assume you got so much respect coming from the enlisted side, going to officer. And how was that transition from the enlisted to officer? Did you have a hard time, or was it pretty much pretty simple because you came from the enlisted side and you know how they think?
It wasn't tough for me because I'd been a platoon sergeant in the Ranger Battalion. And when I got up there and I had a platoon in the 82nd, I was fortunate. I had a good platoon sergeant. So we sat down and talked, and we divided out what I was going to do. And he already knew what he was going to do, but I just acknowledged that, yeah, this is your job. Just show me what you're doing. Keep me up to date in case the CO asks. And I went out and did what officers are supposed to do, and plan ahead and get resources and look at what we're going to do next month and next quarter. So when we got there, it was ready, and the guys had good quality training, and we made a good team, had a good time.
So it sounds to me like you did what leaders are supposed to do, which is empower your people to do their jobs correctly so that you can focus on big picture stuff, which is what your job is, right? And do you think that your experience as an enlisted, sergeant and whatnot aided you or affected your view as an officer? Or did officer candidate school, do you think it does a good enough job of instilling that into people itself?
Officer candidates,
but
officer candidate school was basically you're familiar with the SEER course,
Yes.
resistance to interrogation.
Right.
For me, OCS was a 3-month SEER course. At
Really?
that time, the officers who were TAC officers down there, that was not a premier assignment. So the guys who were TAC officers were ones who had wound up there because they were either getting ready to be thrown out of the Army or they weren't deemed acceptable for other assignments, so they put them in as TACs. One of them, at least, I had written a bad spot report for stealing chow from his Ranger buddies in Ranger school and got him thrown out. That's how he wound up as a TAC officer. So they had fun. I had fun. In fact, there was one point in time when they were gathered around telling me that you're never going to make it. You're not going to graduate and you won't go back to the Ranger battalion. We'll put you in the replacement unit here. And I stopped and said, "Sir, candidate requests permission to speak." "What do you got to say, candidate?" "Sir, I have been through 2 SEER programs up to now, and those are run by professionals. I seriously doubt there's anything you can do to break me." And then I did a lot of push-ups and I walked a lot of punishment tours, but it was worth it.
And now I've heard,
I love that.
I heard somebody talk about going from enlisted to officer and going through training, and they described it as like etiquette school, right? So it sounds like yours was not like that. It sounds like yours was like, a legitimate, they really tried to do some real training. Was that the new military? Did that come in with the stress cards? When did officer candidate school become just learning how the etiquette of being an officer as opposed to like what you're talking about?
I really don't know. All I know is what I experienced when I was there. But I can tell you that all of the classes that we went to and the actual training we went to were the same classes and the same training that I went to in the infantry advanced non-commissioned officers course for infantry that I went through just before OCS.
Mm-hmm.
And the same classes, same instructors, even the same jokes that I got in the infantry officers basic course after I graduated from OCS. So I sat through the same classes 3 times. I knew them by heart by the time I got out of there.
You could teach it. So then I guess the last part I have before we move into kind of your experiences is, do you think, or did you notice that maybe you got more credibility than a typical butter bar lieutenant because people knew, or did people just not know that you had been? I mean, I'm assuming people knew, they had known you previously, and it got around that, Lieutenant Brewer used to be, enlisted. He was a sergeant. He's one of us. He's not, your typical. Did that help, do you think?
That's a good question, but I think that whatever that initial impression is, that only lasts for the first 10 minutes. And then it's what you prove to the guys. Because I've known OCS graduates that were just real assholes and weren't really good officers, probably hadn't been good NCOs. And I've known others that were really good. And you hit the whole spectrum. But they kind of give you a benefit of a doubt. There's kind of a wait and see, especially from the platoon sergeant. How's this guy going to act? And then it's up to you to go ahead and prove yourself and show what you can do.
Well, I mean, at least that's, giving somebody okay, here's a level playing field. Either prove me right or prove me wrong, whatever, giving somebody the open opportunity is, better than a lot of guys that'll say, I've been through so many of these guys. I don't care who he is. I'm never going to give him a chance, which, also happens.
And you will, on a daily basis, run into those people who don't know you from Adam. That only thing they see is you walk into an orderly room and you want to talk to somebody. And there's a series of different things that whoever the guy at the desk will call back and tell the first sergeant or the company commander. And there's some lieutenant out here who wants to see you, or there's a captain here that wants to talk to you, or major by name is here, or the battalion commander is here, sir. And that's the progression. But I was definitely in that some fucking lieutenant wants to talk to you, sir.
That's accurate, man. That's
I mean,
it's very
yeah,
accurate.
yeah.
It's very accurate. And Tom, to answer your question to before, and he answered it very, very good. It only lasts for about the first 10 seconds. Yeah, I mean, you definitely get a little bit of a leg up, I think. At least I know from, my experience, you get a leg up, but it is the wait and see, and let's see how they perform, because we've had that same spectrum where it's like, all right, hey, we expect a lot from you because you came from the enlisted side, and you come and you're complete dog ass.
Right.
Or, you have a guy straight from college and you're like, oh, this guy's gonna suck because he doesn't understand. And then he comes in and he's like, hey, I don't understand. Show me.
Yeah. The only thing I could compare it to, because for us, obviously police department, the guys that are getting promoted.
It's different. Yeah.
But unlike Chuck's department, my department had hired outside chiefs. So there were a couple your department has hired outside chiefs too, your old department. But with my department, like when you got an outside chief, you had no idea what you were getting with a chief. And so when he came in, there were guys that, like you said, wouldn't give him a break. He's like, he's a chief. So obviously he's a politician. He's a piece of crap. And then there are other guys, me, I was one of the guys that were like, hey, I'll give you the chance to prove that you're a good chief, or you're a spineless chief. You just got to show me who you are. And when they show you who you are, just believe them. They'll tell you, they'll show you real quick. So let's talk about, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you the $1 million question. What's better? If you were to tell our listeners who are thinking about joining the military, what is better? Would you stay the enlisted route, or is it better to go the officer route, or is it doing both was the best, right? Where would you land on that question?
I'm kind of happy that I did both, because the thing about the Army is that if you're doing good and you're doing well, you're going to move up fairly quick. Mm-hmm. And the higher up you go, the less of the really fun stuff you're going to get to do, and the more time you're going to spend in the office, and it gets a political aspect to it. And that's just almost inescapable. But I'd hit that point where I was about in my last fun period. I might have been lucky and got a platoon sergeant job as a 7, but then 8 would be coming up, and by 9, you're following around a battalion or a brigade commander or a general, and it's a lot of administrative stuff and taking care of the troops. If you really enjoy, if you really enjoy being out in the field and doing soldier stuff, I went up and then I started over again, and I got another 10 years of the stuff I enjoyed doing.
Well, then I think the answer is C. Do both if you can. If you get the opportunity,
when in doubt, Charlie out.
That's all right. So I would love to talk about some of your experiences and some of the places you've served, because you've written. So you wrote a book called, and we'll obviously talk about this a little bit more at the end, but you wrote Old Scroll Ranger, and the subtitle is Becoming a Ranger in the First 3 Years of the 1974 First Ranger Battalion. Mm-hmm. And then you wrote In the Shadows Between the Wars, Becoming a Special Forces Operator. And you had said something earlier about, this being some of the cartel stuff and the Medellin and the Pablo Escobar. And that, I mean, as a former narcotics detective, that stuff is super fascinating to me. And I love the history of all that, especially when you find out how much went into hunting down a guy like Pablo Escobar that we were involved in that people maybe don't know about. So let's just talk about the reformation of the First Rangers and you going back into it. So, like, what was that? What was the genesis of that? How did you end up there? And talk to us about Old Squirrel Ranger and what people can expect in your experiences there.
Yeah, sure. When I started going to college in North Georgia, at that time it was North Georgia Military College, just down the road from the Mountain Ranger Camp. So it was Ranger this and Ranger that. We idolized those guys. And then the First Ranger Battalion started to crank up. They were reactivated from World War II in 1974. June or July, they started forming at Fort Benning. You couldn't just go there. You couldn't enlist for it at that point in time. But I joined the 20th SF Special Forces National Guard to try and get some extra money to pay the tuition. And I'd been to basic and I'd been to medical AIT. And so I was considered to be prior service. I already had a successful basic AIT and some experience. So that got me into the battalion as a PFC. Had to go to jump school en route, and I went to infantry school en route and showed up there as an infantryman. And 1st Ranger Battalion was formed by General Creighton Abrams after Vietnam because we had a lot of morale problems. We had alcohol, drug problems. There was racial tension. Morale was really low from the way Vietnam ended. And Abrams' idea was he was going to take the best guys that he had from Vietnam, from the LRP teams and SOG and all of those projects and special forces, put them in a Ranger battalion, make the best light infantry battalion in the world, and train them up for about 3 years, every environment, Europe, jungle, desert, Arctic. And then after the first 3 years, take them out Army-wide. And those would become the future sergeant majors of the Army and generals and bring the rest of the Army up to that standard. So I got probably the best initial training as a PFC that you could possibly have gotten with some of the best leaders in the world at that point in time. And we had a reunion for our 50th year since the activation. And we got together. We were telling stories over beer, as guys do. And someone mentioned, we need to write these things down because we're all getting older and these stories will be forgotten. And there's some good stories in there. Mm-hmm. So I wrote about my experiences coming into the battalion as a PFC, what it was like in South Georgia in 1974. There's a good chapter on that.
I can only imagine.
Oh, yeah.
The word hot and humid comes to mind.
Well, there's a photograph in there that the University of Georgia allowed me to use a billboard outside of a little town called Ludowici. And it was put up by Lester Maddox, the governor at that point in time. And it said, if you continue down this road, you will be ripped off by the police. Warning, Lester Maddox, turn around now. And there's a picture of that billboard in the book.
So I think, I was a pretty good detective. Let me see if I can,
crazy.
Clue in our listeners as to what you're talking about.
So there was some tension in Georgia at that time.
Yeah, this was all the old Buford, the sheriff in South Georgia, and you ain't from around here, boy. I mean, it was there in spades.
Yeah, Buford.
So
wow. When I get home, I'm gonna punch your mama in the mouth. There it is.
That's it. Right
you
there.
are in Long County and approaching Ludowici, Georgia. Don't get fleeced in a clip joint. Don't get caught in a speed trap. Leslie Maddox, governor. Lester Maddox. Okay. Lester Maddox, governor. That is hilarious.
Wow.
And there's in that chapter, there's a personal experience in Ludowici, Georgia, to help illustrate that billboard. But then we went out and we started going on the road. We went to the Reforger in Germany. From there, we went to the Jungle Operations Training Course in Panama. From there, we went up in February to the North Slope of Alaska and did the winter warfare training up there. We went to White Sands Desert in New Mexico. And it talks about all the things we did and leadership in the Ranger Battalion and how Rangers do live fires. And the book was written for two purposes. One was for the guys who were there. It's a memento for them. It's got some of our pictures in it, of our guys. And that checked the block from that. The guys loved that. But also I wrote it for people that have never been in the military and don't really know what it's like. And I take the time to explain a lot of stuff in there for someone who has no military experience whatsoever. And the intent is try and help the general public understand what the guys go through, why they do it, what it's all about. Got done with that and then got to thinking and said, I've got some really good stories from SF, but they were top secret, special compartmented information. Mm-hmm. Take it to your grave. You will never speak of this. It didn't happen. You weren't there. Mm-hmm. But then I was looking at Facebook And there's all these old SOG guys and
Right.
Project, they got their own Facebook page.
Right.
And they got camps up there and this guy and this contact and all the rest of it. And I talked to one of them and he said, you get in touch with DOD pre-publication review, write it up, triple wrap it, mark it classified, mail it to them. And they'll tell you if you can talk about it or not. And after 30, 40 years, they don't care.
Right.
But
Oh,
I sent
wow.
it up and they took about 6 months to argue about it because there were some stories in there I deliberately put in because I thought, well, they're never going to let us talk about this. But I'll get left and right limit.
Right.
Right.
They argued about it. And then I talked to the guy after about 6 months and he says, it came back. We sent it out to all the major commands and the State Department and some other people that we're not going to talk about. And it came back and they disagree with one another about what's classified and what's not. So we got to send it out again with everybody's comments.
Oh, wow.
It came back 2 months after that, about 8 months. And the consensus of everyone was, the hell with it. We don't care. It's been almost 40 years any goddamn way. But don't use this 3-letter acronym. Use this
Right.
one instead.
Right.
And
Right.
I said, I don't know what that 3-letter acronym is. I've never heard of it. Everybody knows the one you said don't use, but what's this other? You can talk about it if you just use this one that we made up for you. Said,
Right.
Oh, wow.
okay.
Wow.
Wow. So
I did.
that
I can
book
imagine
has,
it was a certain company that had that acronym.
Oddly enough, no, it was a military
Really?
unit. It was a military unit.
Oh wow! Now you absolutely have my interest, and I know you can't tell me, but I'm familiar. My wife's grandfather has a certificate on his wall in his office that I love to tell people, certificate that says he was not in the military, he was a rocket scientist, but it says in recognition for your service in the Balkans, the CIA thanks you. That was it. And I go, what'd you get that for? And he goes, I can't tell you. And I said, come on, and I thought he was just screwing with me. And his son and his wife said, we don't know what he got it for either. So I get it,
Yeah,
right?
I mean-
He told me that there is stuff that he will be dead 60 years before anybody will know about, right? And so, we get it. But those kinds of things, I think, are fascinating to me that we do things people only dream about and write of in movies, and sometimes the true stories are harder to believe than the fake ones, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
And there's some of those in the book. Columbia is a good one.
Can you give us a taste?
Sure.
Because it's better to hear. I mean, I want to read the book. Don't get me wrong. I will absolutely, but I would love to hear you and your impressions of it.
Sure. And there's an audio book out too, so you can hear it
Do you
as
read
well.
it? Are you the one that reads it? Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay, great.
Hell yeah.
But okay, this was remember when Golan was running as presidential candidate on a counter narco platform, and this was around the late 80s, and he was assassinated on public TV by the narcos.
Right.
And George Herbert Bush was the president at that point in time, and he came out and said that this is not acceptable. We are going to support the Colombian government in their war on drugs. We will give them whatever they need, but we will not send combat troops. That's the only stipulation.
Right.
So then they started putting in the request. One of the requests they put in was for a medical corpsman school. They had no medics, no medevac, none of that. And the guys were going out in the jungle. If they got wounded, they'd die. So they wanted to start up a medical program. Now, at that point in time, the medical corpsman course, they had the POI for it, but it would have been run by something called the Security Assistance Training Management Office, SATMO. And those were logistics people and medical people, communications guys that would go out and help foreign militaries with all of the support branch training. And special forces usually did the combat training. But at that time, Bogota had attacks going on every night, especially in South Bogota. There were dozens of bombs going off every night. There were shootings. There was all kinds of stuff going on. So they couldn't put the SATMO guys down where they wanted them to go training at the School of Logistics, because that was in the South, right in the middle of the combat zone. So they transferred half of my ODA over we were reassigned from Special Forces to SATMO. So now you're no longer Green Berets, you're Security Assistance Training Management Office people. And we came down under orders for them in civilian clothes through a civilian flight in Miami Airport. And we had some sterile BDUs, and we had a radio, and we had our made aid kits and our luggage. But we went in as logistics people. And then they put us in a car and they drove us down there and they dropped us off and told us that, guys, we can't come back and forth because there's too dangerous. We'll drop you off and we'll bring you out in 6 months. But you're down there on your own. Now, you got to remember, in the late 80s, cell phones were out there, but not everybody had them. There were very few.
No.
Right. And they were very expensive. And yep.
No laptops, desktops, but no laptop computers. Yeah. All the internet.
Those desktops were ancient. They were nothing like they are today. I mean, they were like the screen this big and the thing was like that. You know, it was massive, and the form of communication on that was just nothing.
So is this where we're in? I'm just real quick. Is this where we're in the realm of? So I want to say this right because I don't want to malign anybody or say it wrong. Similar to how guys in organizations like MACV-SOG provided training and or advisory roles in Vietnam early days. The general consensus, and that what we'll admit to, is that Delta and SEAL teams were also providing training and advisory roles to groups like Los Pepes, right? Is this the time frame we're talking about?
It was after that, but not very long after. You're talking about 1988, I believe.
Uh-huh.
And this was intended to be a logistics support type mission.
Okay.
But when I was in the airport in Miami getting ready to go down, a brand new book had just come out by Tom Clancy called Clear and Present Danger. And I bought the book and I read it on the way down and going, well, that's cool, but that ain't never going to happen. While we were there doing this, Mill Group got a call from the embassy that Pablo Escobar had called an American unit that was in the valley in between Bogota and Medellin. And it was a U.S. Air Force radar unit. And that radar unit was there under TS, Special Compartmented Information, code word, nobody's supposed to know.
Right.
They're at this Colombian Air Force base. And what they were doing is they were picking up the drug planes that were going out and then tracking them so that the Colombian Air Force could bring them down. Failing that, an aircraft carrier out in the Gulf could take them down. And Escobar was pissed.
Right.
So Escobar called the base and told them, if you don't turn off that radar, I'm going to come in and I'm going to kill the gringos and I'm going to blow it up. And just to prove his point, he came on base and blew up one of the transponders at the end of the runway.
Wow.
So what they told us, it says, we believe that the security force is compromised. There's somebody in there that's working with them.
Yeah.
We've already asked to bring in additional security, American security. The U.S. government won't let us do it, and the Colombian government won't let us do it. You guys are all we've got. Can you go down and do something? And I had to tell him, says, look, man, we're running classes, number one. There's only 6 of us, number 2. And the only guns we got were the Beretta pistols you gave us for self-defense when we came down here.
Right.
Oh, shit.
Well, just go and see what you can do. Now,
okay.
Since
that's cool. Do it anyway.
Since we were stuck down there for 3 months by this point in time, and being guys, the guys have got to have their Copenhagen. They've got to get the mail. It comes in through the embassy. So we were coming out of there and we were walking, taking taxis, buses, wearing civilian clothes, figuring out how to stay alive in Bogota, getting street smarts.
Right.
We were the only Americans that were doing that. And every time we'd show up at the embassy, they'd go, oh my God, you made it down here. How the hell did you do that? And we'd tell them what we'd run into and what we'd seen. And we never got shot at directly, but we'd be out there when people were getting shot and we'd see bombs going off. It was routine, but you know how it is. And you're in a bad area, you develop street smarts. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
You do what you got to do to move around.
It's the same
know
thing
how to
cops
blend
do
in.
downtown LA and South Central every day. You know where you can go, you know when you can't. Yeah.
There were only a couple of categories of people on the streets in South Bogota at night. There were victims, head down, moving fast, point A to point B, don't make eye contact.
Mhm.
Mhm.
There were military patrols, and they're in uniform, so you know who they are. Cops, they were out there in their cars. They never got more than 6 feet away from their car, if they got out of
Right.
the car at all.
Right.
Those are the people they were shooting at. So they're staying close and keep moving.
Shit.
And then there were the sicarios from the cartels.
Right.
They were
Bad
driving the
dudes.
big, expensive cars, and they usually didn't get out of their cars either until they got where they were going. And then that left the criminal element. So you had rateros. A ratero is a sneak thief, pickpocket, but they don't come out at night because they get in trouble. But you had the ladron. And the ladron, they were the tough guy, neighborhood tough guy. They're the mugger. And you could always tell a ladron because he's usually got blue jeans, he's got a black leather jacket, and he's standing up in the corner, leaning back, and he's got that Bogota tilt. Like, what do you want? Who are you? Why are you on my corner?
Right.
It sounds like the Fonz.
Exactly right. So we were ladron. We got the black leather jackets, we copped the attitude, and that's how we moved around through the city.
Shit,
So
huh?
we went up. Yeah. So we went up to the embassy. We briefed them on what was going on. They put us on a Colombian general's aircraft and flew us down to German Olano Air Base in the valley between Bogota and Medellin. Put on our camis because, blonde hair, blue eyes, we're both over 6 foot. We weren't going to blend. If shit went south, we were going to head for the jungle.
Right.
Got out and started talking to all the Colombian security force, figured out real quick who was compromised and who wasn't. And there were only about 4 or 5 Americans down there. There was one security policeman and the commander, and the rest of them were techs that were running the radar site.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You said you were talking to some of these people. How did you determine the ones who were bad actors as opposed to the ones who were like legit? What were some of the questions that maybe you asked to determine that, to decipher that?
Oh, we didn't have to ask any questions at all.
Just
We
say-
got it. We got out there. First thing that we did was we went up to the security policeman and said, "Hey, man, all we've got are these Berettas. Have you got any big guns that we can borrow?" And he said, "Yeah, come on." And he took me out to this GP large tent. GP large is about 20 feet long and 10 feet wide. It's a big tent. And I thought that was our command post. But we walked in and, man, it was stacked floor to ceiling, front to rear, with an aisle down through the middle of crates and crates of M16 rifles, M60 machine guns, Claymore mines, hand grenades, explosives. And dude, there's only 5 or 6 of you. What were you going to do with this? I said, well, we thought we'd go ahead and equip the Colombians, but we figured out they're compromised, so we can't give it to them. But we wanted to come prepared. So we went through the candy store and we got kitted out. We had everything we need. We borrowed a Jeep, and all the security force were living up in the jungle on a hill. So we drove up to see them. Officers lived down in the cantina in the valley by the airstrip. The soldiers and the sergeants lived up on the mountain in the jungle, no air conditioning. They bring them a big pot of food once a day, and everybody eats out of that. So their life sucks up there. So
Right.
we drove up to visit them, and the 2 cabos that were in charge, corporals, they come running out, and they're both angry. And, who are you? Why are you here? What the hell do you want? The soldados, they were happy to see us. Oh, wow, Americans, gee. So right there, we knew, okay, the cabos are the guys. And
Oh God.
I don't blame them. I mean, the way they're getting treated here. But we did some work with them. We got them some bug juice. We got them some water. Made their life a little bit easier. Got them over there. We did a recon on the hilltop. Found out where the Escobar had clipped a little trail through the jungle, because the jungle came right up to a single roll of concertina that was right around the place where they were set up, and jungle right up to the edge of it. And they clipped a little trail right up to where the generators were. So we had all the soldados come out. We cleared 300 meters of field of fire all the way around that hilltop. dug fighting positions, put in firing tables for the machine guns, put out claymore mines. And because Escobar had said he was going to come up, we had a day, a night, and a day. And we figured he'd come up the next night after that. So we got all of this done in a single day. And then we told the Cabos, well, they had a company of troops. I mean, we had like 100 some odd troops out there digging. And we told the Cabos, do not come up on this hill tonight because Escobar said he's coming tonight. And we can't tell if it's you or them. So we're going to kill anybody who comes up this trail after dark. So don't come here. And then the two of us, just me and my senior medic, we moved the claymores after it got good and dark because we knew somebody was probably watching, shifted them around. And then we took up positions and we just waited. And about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, 8 guys come out of the jungle from where we knew there was a finca, a little ranch just off the base, because we'd already reconned that too. We saw guys coming up in the white Toyota Land Cruisers and taking guns and uniforms out, and we figured that was their objective rally point. So we knew who it was. You know, they were head on a swivel, brand new uniforms, guns left and right, and walked right up, and one of the Cabos met him at the base of the hill, and he's pointing up the hill and talking to him. They turned around, left, and went back. And Escobar called the base the next day and said, I don't care about your radar or your fucking Green Berets.
Right.
And then it was, oh my God, great job. Guys, you've done wonderful. Come on back to Bogota. The funny part was that we asked when the general's airplane was coming. I said, oh, you know, the general's very busy and the airplane's not really available, but you're Green Berets and you do around Bogota all the time. So then we had to sit down and figure out, how are we going to get down this 1-2-lane road going back to Bogota that we know Escobar's guys control?
Right.
There was a bus that went out of that little village every day going up to Bogota. And the only thing we could figure is we'll get on that bus and we'll tell the driver, you don't stop for anything. And if he tries to, we'll pull him out of the way, drive the bus ourselves. We'll hijack the bus. Explain to Mill Group, hey, this is the best we can do, man, because it's like over 100 miles to get back there through the jungle. And it's going to take us a while if we got to walk. And the guys here, they're not going to drive us. There's no way in hell. So finally, they got one guy we knew, a little Colombian guy in the embassy. His mom lived in that village. So he took an old beat up station wagon with one headlight out, drove down through the checkpoints, came in, got a chicken in a cage from his mom, picked us up, and drove back out. And he'd already greased the skids with all the Escobar checkpoint guys coming in, you know, paid them off, made friends, bought them stuff from the city. So when he came back out again, 2 guys huddled up in the back. He goes, who are they? Oh, they're nothing. They're my cousins. We're going back up to, okay, go on out.
It's my cousin. Everybody's your cousin.
Smart.
Yeah. And went right on through, went back up to the city.
That's so out of the box thinking.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you can answer this or not. But I will ask, was this the beginnings of, or was it part of Centrispike at all? Was what you were doing, was it part of that operation? Was it a separate thing? Was it combined with it? Was it in conjunction with it? Was it a different time frame?
I was not associated with Centrispike in any way.
Okay.
They called us out of the blue. We went down and did our thing, and we went back, and nobody told us nothing.
It's interesting because there's so many, I guess, there's so many pieces, right? And they're all working for the same thing. They're all and you talked about Clear and Present Danger. Tom Clancy, he must have had the greatest research assistant in the history of research assistants of any author in the history of mankind, right? Because the rumor is, and I don't know if this is true, but the rumor is that when he wrote Hunt for Red October, the manuscript was not even published yet, and the Navy intelligence came to his house and said, get in the car and come with us, and sat him down in a room and pointed to some pages in the book and said, where the hell did you hear about this? And when you look at clear and present danger, again, he's writing about things almost presciently, like not they, like you said, you read it and you're like, yeah, there's no way. And then all of a sudden, wait a minute, right? And then there was a book he wrote where a pilot flies a plane into a U.S. building and kills a bunch of people, right? And so I don't know if it's art imitating life or life imitating art, but when you look at what our actual involvement is in some of these things versus, maybe what we're publicly willing to admit to at times, it's always been fascinating to me. I remember the first time I heard about the book Killing Pablo and how that whole book came to be written by the same author who wrote Black Hawk Down. And he was in, I think he was in, he was in the office of a DEA agent, and maybe you knew him, maybe you didn't. His name was Steve Murphy, I think. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I only met 2 DEA guys the whole time I was there, and that was as a reward for what we did. They let us fly home for Christmas.
Really?
Oh, yeah, it never happened before, but they said, yeah, you guys go ahead and take a week, go home for Christmas, but you're coming back. And
because you did such a good job, you have to come back.
Yeah, and we were going to fly through Tucumán Airport in Panama City on the night that Just Cause started, and the Ranger Battalion jumped in and seized the airfield. But they blew up the police station in Bogota the day before. And after that big bomb went off, nobody was flying, nobody was going anywhere, so we got delayed. So the next day, we're heading to the airport. And that's when we heard on the radio that the Americans have invaded Panama. You have to rise up and kill the gringos wherever you find them and support yada, yada.
Right.
We knew something was going on. So we checked back in and nobody was flying. But they did have a 141 that was coming through that had picked up a Black Hawk that they'd given to the Colombians that crashed. They said, well, you can hook a ride on that bird and go back. So we hooked a ride back to Fort Bragg. Immediately went to Green Ramp, because the whole 7th group was down at Green Ramp getting ready to go to Panama, both the other 2 battalions. Embassy was way ahead of us. They'd already called down and talked to our commander and told them that those guys are coming back here. They're not going to the war.
Mm-hmm.
Sent us back. And after we got back at the end of the mission, that's when they sent us to Panama. And we went in. Have you ever heard of Operation Promote Liberty?
No. I've heard of Operation Just Cause, but I don't know that I've heard of Operation Promote Liberty.
But to get back to your question on the DEA agents, the only 2 DEA agents I ever met was when we flew back into Bogota, and there were 2 DEA guys down there in the customs office. Mm-hmm. And we flew in, we had our black leather, we got our pistols back from the customs guy. Instead of going through the normal customs, he stamped our passports so we didn't have to go up into the terminal.
Right.
And he'd drive us to the back gate and open the back gate on the airfield, and we'd go out through there and we'd grab a cab and make our way out through the city again. So we're talking to the DEI guys, and they're talking about this and that and dangerous missions, and these are things we do. I said, well, dude, we're down here in San Cristobal. If you want to come up and visit, we got a place that we go to once in a while to get some chow. And the guy was, oh, hell no. Are you crazy? It's dangerous out there. So, that was my sole contact with the DEA.
Oh, man. See, I loved working undercover so much. And I loved, like, I don't know, maybe that makes me a sick man, but like what you're talking about, like the idea of you came up, you thought outside of the box, you come up with this plan, you blend in a very unorthodox way. You're ready for whatever comes at you because fuck it. That's like, there is no other choice, right? There is nobody else. They said, I don't care if you only have Berettas, the 6 of you go take care of it. And you found a way to take care of it. And that I think what appealed to me so much about, certain aspects of working narco and certain aspects of what SF guys do. And some of these clandestine operations is when they just say, hey, look, we're going to drop you in and we're going to kind of tell you what needs to be done, but we are not going to micromanage how you do it. So good luck. And I know that there's some inherent danger. And also, if something bad goes wrong, you died in a training accident. Sure, I get it, right? But that stuff is that's the stuff that appeals. It's always has appealed to me. It always will appeal to me. It's living on the edge of the tip of the spear, right? The tip of the spear is one thing, but living on the edge of the tip of the spear is a whole other thing. And you're flying without a net at that point.
You guys would like the promote Liberty story down in Panama, because after the war, they shot people. They'd been killing, done all the rest of this. They'd got Noriega. Then everybody packed up and they went back to the States.
Mhm.
Now, there was 3rd Battalion, the 7th Group that was still down there. There was 197th, I think it is, Military Brigade was still down there. We still had the Canal Zone.
Mhm.
But they brought down another battalion of 7th Group guys from the States. And we got an in brief, and we were told that you guys are going to go out to every major compound. They call them quartels, not cartels, but quartels, for the Panamanian Defense Force. Tell them you're cops now. You're not military. And that was a problem right off the bat, because in that culture, the PDF thought that if you're too fat and lazy to be in the Army, you can be a cop. So now we tell them, take off all your badges. You're all cops now, and give them back their guns. But don't give them the good guns. Don't give them the AK-47s. Give them these cheap Chinese knockoffs of M16 that they hate. They can have those in one magazine per man, but no more
The
than that.
Norencos or whatever.
Yeah. And they were not happy.
Right.
And we said, okay, well, what's the mission? Are we supposed to teach them how to be cops? We're not cops. I said, no, we're going to bring other people down to help you with that. You're tripwires. So there'll be 2 of you in some locations in the big places that have got a couple of hundred of them. We'll put 4 of you in there. And check in with us every day. If you go 3 days without checking in, we'll assume that you're dead and there's a problem there. So be sure to check in. And if we get intel that they're going to kill you, we'll send you the code word to escape and evade. And you guys get out of there and try to make your way back to the Canal Zone. So that was the mission. Just
That's awesome.
keep your eyes open and let us know what's going on. But we were, by law, not allowed to form intelligence nets. We couldn't hire
Informants and human intel. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Couldn't do that. They had a military intelligence
You
brigade.
couldn't do it, but we all know there's a difference between what they are allowing you to do and what you do to survive, right? So can I ask, you don't have to admit to anything, but is that the kind of situation where it's, hey, you're not allowed to do this, wink, wink, or is it like, no, you better not do it, otherwise we're going to stick the green weenie where the sun don't shine?
There was a military brigade commander down in the Canal Zone that was adamant that we couldn't do that. And he'd send his guys up to check on us to see if we were doing it so he could put us in jail.
Oh,
so we didn't have informants.
Chicken shit.
We didn't pay anybody. But what we would do is we'd go for a walk. So one guy would watch the radio and watch the team room where we had the long guns. And we'd take a pistol, tuck it up underneath, back in civilian clothes again, and go for a walk through town. Now, we knew there were people who wanted to kill us because they were going to do a coup attempt, but they weren't going to kill you if they could get caught at it. So if they figured they could take you someplace where no one would know, they're going to do it. So again, it's Bogota all over again, head on a swivel, but this time everybody knew who we were. So you stay around lots of witnesses and you make sure your guys know when you left, when you're going to come back. You don't repeat routes. And we just go out, and people would come up to us because nobody wanted the Noriega to come back. Nobody wanted the bad old days. So all the local citizens, they come up and they just want to tell you things. And we'd have a cup of coffee and we'd listen to whatever they wanted to tell us. Wouldn't ask anybody, wouldn't ask any questions, just let them tell their stories. And then we'd send that back to the rear. And after, you help out people periodically, but you don't pay anyone. Like their truck got stuck in a ditch, we'd help them pull it out.
Right.
Or whatever you can do. And we got better intel than the MI brigade was getting, because the MI brigade, they didn't have spooks. They had translators and interrogators, and they had signal intelligence, and they had all of that stuff, but they didn't have spooks. So there was a big competition. In fact, that guy came out got to be a problem. I had to invite him to return back to the canal zone, or we were going to have to flex him, put him in a foot locker, and put him in the trunk of his car to get him out of there because bad things were going on at the time. And he did not appreciate that. But
He did not. Understatement of the show right there.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Chris,
but
I
it
am
got
just,
sorted out.
I am telling you right now, this has been absolutely one of my favorites. We are running short on time, and I know we have a dedication. I also want to talk about your books. So before we get to the dedication, we're going to talk about your books, but before we talk about your books, I want to ask you two questions. Number one, we would love to have you back to talk more because I have so many more questions. And just like your books,
amazing.
we launched this show to get the stories. We want people's stories and experiences preserved for the average person to understand, hey, this is what we do and this is why we do it, right? There are no draftees anymore. When guys join up, they join up to go and do the Lord's work. They are happy to do it. In fact, if anything we've learned from this show and serving ourselves is when you join up and you get the uniform, you eventually want to put it on and go do what it was designed for. And if you don't, it's almost like having a really hot girlfriend you never get to kiss, right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you first and foremost, we'd love to have you back on if you'd be willing to come on again.
Oh, sure.
You.
I'd love to.
That's amazing. And the second, I don't know if you can say this, it may be classified, but I really do want to know, do you know what Manuel Noriega, good old Pineapple Face's favorite song that they blasted at his compound was?
Oh,
they talk about playing the music loud and playing metal music and all that stuff, Metallica, whatever. What can you confirm what any song or what his favorite or anything like that?
I wasn't there when they were doing that. I was still in Colombia, but I can find out. I'll find out and let you know.
That'd be amazing. Because I've always heard that they played music to drive him nuts. And I've always wanted confirmation as to what song was on heavy rotation that drove good old Pineapple Face to go, fuck it, I give up.
That's hilarious.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on. The first Old Scroll Ranger is the first book, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the first book here, I'm going to show the cover, Old Scroll Ranger. It is available on Amazon. Yes?
Correct.
And you do not have a website yet, but you will have one. But this is available on Amazon. So if you want to purchase it, you can get it from Amazon. It's Chris Brewer's book, Becoming a Ranger in the First 3 Years of the 1974 First Ranger Battalion. I can't wait to read it. It looks fascinating. But the second book, which I'm going to admit I'm looking forward to part 2 of the books, probably a little bit more. Is In the Shadows Between the Wars, Becoming a Special Forces Operator. And if you're listening to this and not looking at it, I'm showing the cover of the book, and it's a Black Hawk with military personnel of an undisclosed type, fast roping onto the deck of a ship. Can you or can you not tell us where this photograph is taken? I could guess, but I don't want to be wrong.
It's actually captioned in the book. That is ODA 132 from 1st to the 1st in Okinawa, and they're in Hong Kong Harbor. And that was the last U.S. unit that went to train with the Hong Kong police before it was handed back over to the People's Republic of China.
Got it. Okay, it's a great photo, and it's so cool. So In the Shadows Between the Wars is the first book, and Old Scroll Ranger is the second book. Chris, it's been a blast, and an hour flies by too fast when you're having this kind of fun.
Yeah, we need to get a case of beer and go do someplace where we had time.
I am all about one of my favorite stories is the world's greatest beer run, and so I'm down to try it. So Chuck, do you have the dedication this week? Is that correct?
I do.
Okay.
But before we get to that, one, I want to say thank you so much, Chris, for coming on. And I do have a question. What was the pucker factor like being in Colombia and in Panama and stuff like that at that time? Like, Holy crap. Like I can only imagine what it was like. I mean, I know you guys are some badass special forces dudes, but I mean, there's got to be some type of like, oh shit, this is getting pretty hairy. Was there any of that?
Yeah, there were periods of time where things got a bit intense, but probably the worst part of it was just knowing that the guy that was sitting next to you or you're talking to was probably plotting to kill you later on if you could get a shot at it.
Wow.
And that tension is always there for
Right.
6 months, and then we had a two-week break, and then had another 6 months where it did get into some shooting toward the end there down in the National Police headquarters when the coup happened.
Mm.
That's a good story. That'll be a good one for next time.
Oh
Well,
my
and
gosh, I
so
can't
they talk
wait. I can't wait.
Yeah, they talk about like the same thing in Vietnam, where it doesn't matter if they have a friendly card, doesn't mean they're friendly, right? Like
Mhm.
and so that is where as a police officer, I can completely sympathize, because every day you go out there and you talk to people, and at any given moment the person you're talking to may be thinking, I need to kill this dude, because they know if they have a warrant, they know if they're wanted, they know if they're a murderer. You have no idea. So I get it. I can only imagine feeling that way on someone else's turf. I felt that way on home turf, and I had home field advantage. You were playing an away game, and so the intensity of your body going and your rights not following you, and of being somewhere where the U.S. government's like, yeah, we want you to do stuff, but we can't tell anybody that you're doing it. So if it goes bad, oops.
Yeah, and
That has to magnify that a lot.
and backup's not coming.
Right. There is no backup. And if there is backup, it's 50-50 that they're trying to kill you too.
Yeah, that's a fact.
That's intense. Well, holy crap. I cannot wait for part 2. Chris, thank you so much for coming on. I do have today's dedication. And this dedication goes out. I mean, a lot of people in Southern California have already heard of the 3 detectives for Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department who tragically passed away due to an explosion. But if you haven't, this strikes close to home for both Tom and I, even though Tom doesn't live in California anymore. But
one of my wife's friends, Chuck, is an LA County deputy and was close friends with one of the slain detectives.
That's rough, man. And I just there are brothers in green. I mean, they're something else. But this goes out to Detective Joshua Kelly Eklund, Detective Victor Lemus, Detective William Osborne. And so I'm going to read the caption right now. Detective Joshua Kelly Eklund, Detective Victor Lemus, and Detective William Osborne were killed in an explosion at the Biscaynes Center Academy training at 1060 Northeastern Street in Los Angeles around 7:30 a.m. They had served with Detective Kelly Eklund served with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department for 19 years, assigned to the Special Enforcement Bureau. He is survived by his wife and 7 children. It doesn't really go into any much more detail, but basically what happened is earlier, either that day or the day before, they served a warrant or something like that, where they recovered explosives. They recovered grenades, and they determined them to be inert. When they were transporting them back, they got back to SEB headquarters, and I guess they were moving it, and it wasn't inert, and one of them exploded, killing all 3 of these detectives. It was a tragic accident. It's something that will not be forgotten, and these guys will be remembered for forever. I mean, it definitely strikes very close to home, because anybody who's ever worked with any type of explosives or anything like that knows how dangerous it can be. But and you come across so many devices in your time as law enforcement, especially in Los Angeles, that it's so hard to put into words, but you come across so many that are just bogus and BS. And it's like, when you go look at it, you're like, oh, that's inert. And it ends up not being inert. That's fucking tragic, and it's horrible. And our hearts go out to the friends and family of these detectives. And it's just, it's so sad. And Detective Lemus, he served the department for 22 years. And he is survived by his 3 daughters, 3 sisters. and his 3 sisters who also serve at Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office, and 4 brothers. And Detective
all
William
assigned-
Osborne.
Mhm.
Detective William Osborne
No.
served with the department for 33 years. He was also assigned to this Special Enforcement Bureau. He is survived by his wife, who is also a detective at Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. He has 4 sons and 2 daughters. I
Yeah.
mean,
They were part of the LA County Sheriff's Elite Arson and Explosives Detail, which is attached to the Special Enforcement Bureau, SEB. For those of you who don't know, SEB is LA County Sheriff's acronym that they use for SWAT. And so the Special Enforcement Bureau contains their tactical unit SWAT team. It contains their arson and explosives unit, among other things. These 3 deputies were well trained. They knew what they were doing, and the job is the job, and it's still dangerous. And you just never know. And unfortunately, between the 3 of these deputies, they leave behind 16 children, which is the to me, it's the ultimate tragedy of all of this. So rest easy, brothers. We've got it from here. Well, I mean, we always end with that. It's not fun, but it has to be done.
yeah.
But we wanted to thank Chris for coming on. Chris, we look forward to having you back. Once again, the books are Old Scroll Rangers and In the Shadows Between the Wars by Chris Brewer. Go check him out at Amazon, and stick around for part 2. We'll have that coming up. Chuck, what do you got for us?
Well, thank you all today for tuning in. And if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow us on Instagram at war_stories_official and our Facebook at War Stories Podcast. If you're already following us, please share the stuff, share all of our posts, help spread the word. If you can also check us out in the link on our bio on both platforms to find all of our social media, our media links, and our website. Our podcast is available on all major streaming platforms, including YouTube. And on YouTube, make sure to hit that notification bell. That way, anytime we drop a new episode, a Locker Room Live, a War Stories podcast, you get notified and you can join in on the fun and you can watch us there. If you'd like to support us, head over to our website at www.warstoriesofficial.com. Grab some gear. Do you have a story to tell, or you know someone who does? We're always looking for law enforcement, veterans, corrections officers, dispatchers, firefighters, medics, and ER docs and ER nurses to feature on the show. If you're interested, go to linkedin.com/War Stories Podcast. Connect with Dylan there, and he can get you booked. If you do not have a LinkedIn, you can also email us at booking.warstories@gmail.com. But that is not as frequently checked as LinkedIn. So if you want to go to LinkedIn, that would be the fastest. You can also message us on Instagram and Facebook. I know Dylan's really diligent about looking at all that stuff. So if you keep sending it there, you will get seen if you don't have a LinkedIn. But if you get a LinkedIn, it's easy. And also check us out on TikTok, www.tiktok.com/War Stories Locker Room. Thank you for your support. Stay safe out there.
And until our next episode, come home with your shield or on it.